Hello everybody and welcome back to Out of Body, 31 Days of Halloween. Today's video is a video that a lot of you have been waiting for a long time. This is a video on Elvis and Graceland. I'm going to be talking about the hauntings at Graceland specifically, and I'm also going to be talking about the ghost sightings of Elvis that have happened not only in Memphis but in other places as well. And there's a little bonus tidbit of information about Elvis that I'll talk about as well that a lot of you probably don't know. So sit down, get comfortable, relax, get you a snack, get you a drink, and let's get right into this video. So Elvis Presley was born Elvis Aaron Presley on January 8th, 1935 in Tupelo, Mississippi. In Elvis's younger years, he was considered an outsider, and actually in high school, he failed his music class because he couldn't quite catch on to reading the notes, which in school they want you to learn how to read notes. I know because I'm a musician, I went through that. I had to teach myself how to read the notes. It is very hard. It's like another language. But I just thought that was interesting that he failed music class. Not like that he failed, but just because as inspirational for people like me, because I felt like I did really bad in school with music. Especially in college, I had a lot of discouragement and everything from teachers. So it's just inspiring seeing how he rose to the top despite all of that. So Elvis got his start at Sun Studios, which at the time was owned by Sam Phillips. And in 1954, he recorded his first record, which was That's All Right. And in 1955, he got his first recording contract with RCA Records. And I mentioned in an earlier video, the Peabody Hotel video, that he actually signed this record contract at the Peabody Hotel. So when Elvis rose to fame and he was on TV and he was on the radio and all this stuff, when people saw him dance, a lot of people thought that his dance moves and the way he danced was provocative, which nowadays it's yeah, that's totally fine. Heartbreak Hotel was the first of many #1 singles. Elvis also did a lot of movies. He signed his first movie contract in 1956. Now, something you may not know if you don't know a lot about Elvis, he actually served in the military. He actually received a draft notice in 1957 and then proceeded to go to Germany, where he served in the military for a year and a half. Now, while serving in Germany, he actually met his future wife, Priscilla. They got married in 1967, and Lisa Marie, their daughter, was born the following year. So in 1968, Elvis performed his first TV special, which is now referred to as the 68 comeback, because it's kind of when he came back from the war and after he got married and just when he kind of just had his big comeback with music. And in 1973, unfortunately, Elvis and Priscilla got divorced. And after this, Elvis seemed to go a little bit on a decline as far as his health. He gained some weight. He became addicted to some drugs, supposedly, and this actually added to his health problems. And despite his health issues, he still remained a residency in Las Vegas. A residency, for those of you who don't know, means that he performed in Vegas and he stayed out there and he would perform a certain amount of shows, the same time every year. Mariah Carey does the same thing. I'm a huge fan of her, if you didn't know. But she does the same thing just about every year. She has a residency in Las Vegas. So Elvis spent a lot of time in Las Vegas. And Elvis also did many tours in his career, though interestingly enough, he never performed outside of North America. And his last concert was in June of 1977 in Indianapolis. Now, before I go into his death, I'm gonna go into a little bit of information about Graceland, the home that he purchased. So Graceland was built in 1939, and the original family that lived there was the S.E. Tuff family, and the home had been in their family for several generations and is actually situated on 500 acres. Now, what I found interesting when I was researching about Graceland is I always thought that Graceland was a name given by Elvis when he purchased the home, because he was very much into gospel music and, he's very godly and everything, Christian. I thought that he named it Graceland, Grace. But actually, the name was given by the original owners. It was named after one of the family members whose name was Grace. And one of Grace's descendants in that family was a musician and would often hold recitals in the home. Now, Elvis purchased the home in 1957 when he was 22, and he paid $100,000 for it. Which, that's a lot of money to me, but if you've seen that house, if you've been to that house and that property and the 500 acres with it, that is a steal. Now, Elvis would often let his relatives stay with him. He would even walk like right up to the gate if fans were there, you know, as long as there wasn't a huge crowd. But if there was like a few people there that came up to the gate, and sometimes he'd be riding his horse, you know, and he would come right up to the gate and talk to fans and stuff. I just think that's really cool. So today, Graceland is obviously a museum. I've been there fairly recently within the last 2 years, and it is huge. Like, not necessarily the house itself. I mean, it's a big house, but they've built this hotel right across the street from it, and they've built like all these other buildings to house all his memorabilia, and it is huge. Not to mention his airplane is there as well. So people today come from all over the world, quite literally all over the world, to see Graceland. Now, unfortunately, the upper floors of the house have been off limits for around 30 years. I specifically looked that up because when I went to visit, I wanted to go upstairs and they wouldn't let us, and so I was like, why? I assume it's probably because maybe they feel like it's not structural to have people going up and down the stairs every day. So if you have not toured it and you live somewhere remotely near Memphis, you really should. It is a good experience. Even if you're not a huge Elvis fan, it's just really neat to see. So now to shift the focus back to Elvis specifically, I'm going to talk a little bit about his death and some of the myths surrounding it. He passed away in August of 1977 of an apparent heart attack, and from what they say, prescription drugs contributed to having that heart attack. Now, his girlfriend at the time, Ginger Alden, is the one that found him the next day, because he passed away somewhere during the night, and she found him the next day at 1 p.m. and called the paramedics, and he was rushed to the hospital, but was deemed dead on arrival. So Elvis had a habit of staying up really late at night, and he was up pretty late this night. I believe he was playing some sort of sport with one of his relatives that was staying there at the time. And then at some point he decided to play some piano for a while, and then he finally went to bed at 5 a.m. He didn't actually go to bed, but he went into the bedroom and grabbed a book, and he went into the bathroom that was connected to the bedroom. He did that so that he would not disturb his girlfriend while he was reading, you know, because when you read, you need a light and all of that. So he went into the bathroom so as not to disturb her. So before he goes into the bathroom, his wife is awake, and the last thing that she says to him is, "Don't fall asleep in there." And then he says, "Okay, I won't." And that's the last that anyone ever heard of Elvis until he was found the next day. Now, one of the myths about his death, which I had found, and it was hard to find because most sources will tell you that he died on the toilet, he was actually found on the ground. He was lying on the ground. From what I researched, he did not die on the toilet. Like, he wasn't going to the bathroom and then fell over. He was actually sitting in a barber chair that was right across from the toilet, because he went in there to read. So he went into the bathroom and sat in the barber chair and read, and apparently at some point had a heart attack, fell under the ground, and that's where he passed away. Now, Elvis is actually buried behind Graceland, along with his mother, his father, and his grandmother. So now to get into the ghost sightings of Elvis. This is a long list I have here, so bear with me, get comfortable. So on December 20th, 1980, multiple people had spotted Elvis. Now, all of these people agreed that they had picked up or saw a young version of Elvis in an army uniform, and some of them had actually picked him up off the side of the road like he was hitchhiking, and every person that did that agreed that he had asked them to take him to Graceland, and then they would drop him off, and then he would go through the gates of Graceland and disappear. Some people even claim that on this day that he sang to them. Now, there is a famous 1988 sighting at Graceland. Apparently there was a tour group there, and a younger looking Elvis walked up behind the tour group and was saying things like, "Why are you in my home?" And the people there just thought he was an actor. And then some people claimed later that they could see through him. Other tourists who have come to Graceland have claimed to hear Elvis singing. And at first they thought it was maybe a speaker, like playing music or something, but then they'd look around or they'd ask the tour guide, and there's nothing like that going on. There's no music playing in that particular area. And similar to what I mentioned earlier, Various people on different tours have claimed to see a man dressed as Elvis at Graceland. When they asked the tour guide, they said, "Oh, who's the Elvis impersonator?" And the tour guide's like, "What are you talking about? There's no impersonator. There's nobody dressed as Elvis." People have claimed to see the ghost of Elvis peering out of the windows at Graceland. They've also claimed to have seen him near his grave. Some reports by employees who have worked there have claimed to see shadow people at the home. I even looked up an interview with Priscilla Presley that's a more current interview. And she said that she even feels his presence at times, and it's very comforting to her. She said specifically that it's a beautiful feeling. Like I said earlier, Elvis has not just been seen in Memphis since his death. He has also been seen in Las Vegas. Since he did a residency there and spent a lot of time there, it makes sense. Now, one interesting specific ghost sighting that's been seen time and time again, many people have claimed to see this. In Las Vegas, people claim to see Elvis in a red Cadillac driving straight into a wall. Now, not just driving into a wall, this brick wall they see him drive into used to be his private driveway at the Hilton Hotel. But now there's just a brick wall there. So it's almost like there's some residual energy there, possibly. Because it's like they see the same thing every time. He's in the Cadillac and he's just driving. You know, so it's like residual energy is when it's almost like a energetic footprint where something just repeats itself over and over. It's not necessarily the person's actual spirit. It's just some energy that they imprinted there without realizing it. And so it's just the same motion. It just repeats and repeats and repeats. That could be what it is, but I thought that was interesting. Now, even Wayne Newton has claimed to see the ghost of Elvis when he performed in Las Vegas at his concert. Now, a Las Vegas psychic says that Elvis is earthbound and that he is because he has unfinished business. So could be. I like to think as well, just putting it out there, that it's not necessarily that he's earthbound. It could be that he has crossed over, but that he just comes back to visit because he loves his life that he had here and his fans, and just he loved Memphis so much. So it makes sense that he would be seen here a lot. So next I want to actually read some excerpts out of this Haunted Memphis book that I have. It is by Laura Cunningham and is part of the Haunted America series. So I just, rather than trying to summarize it and doing all of that, it's easier just to read it, because what I'm going to read is people's firsthand experiences and their stories about seeing Elvis. So I'm just going to start reading here. Farmer Claude Buchanan knew Elvis, who had visited his rural Tennessee farm twice. On the afternoon Elvis died, Buchanan was out on a ridge tending to an injured animal. He happened to look down the hill and saw Elvis, surrounded by a blue mist, walking up the hill toward him. Buchanan, quite surprised that he hadn't seen Elvis driving up the road, called down and asked what he was doing out there. Elvis replied, "I've come to say goodbye for a while, Claude." Just then, Claude's wife came outside and yelled to him that they had just announced on the radio that Elvis had died. Claude couldn't sleep for the next 2 nights, confused as to why Elvis came to him, since he was not one of Elvis's closest friends. In December 1980, truck driver Jack Matthews believed he saw Elvis one night on the highway, 100 miles west of Memphis, and even gave him a ride. Matthews had stopped for fuel that evening, and as he was preparing to get back on the road, he noticed a man walking down the old highway carrying a wool jacket and with a bundle under his arm. When Matthews asked him where he was headed, he said he was headed to Memphis to see his mama and daddy. Matthews felt bad for the man, walking through the dark countryside, and offered him a ride. During the ride, the 2 men discussed the music they liked and cars. The hitchhiker told the trucker that he owned several Cadillacs, but of course Matthews didn't believe him. I mean, he was hitchhiking, why would he? If he owned a bunch of Cadillacs, why ain't he driving one? They were getting along quite well, and Matthews felt comfortable enough to share his problems with alcohol. The young man understood and related how he had battled painkillers and sleeping pills. As they drove closer to Memphis, more lights on the road revealed that the hitchhiker looked familiar to the trucker. He told the trucker his address, which was Elvis Presley Boulevard. At that point, Matthews realized he had never introduced himself. After he did, his passenger replied, "I'm Elvis Presley, sir." Elvis asked to be let off at a certain street, and the trucker did as he was asked. Matthews had never been to Graceland before, but he went back 2 weeks later and realized that it was just down the street from where he had let his passenger out. In an interview before her death in 2000, Elvis's former cook, Mary Jenkins Langston, admitted that she had been haunted by Elvis since his death in 1977. Langston served as the cook for Elvis and his family from 1966 until he passed away. Of particular interest is how he appeared to her by returning to haunt the bathroom in the house that he bought her. She would often hear him banging around in the bathroom. Another local woman claimed that Elvis once possessed her television set. She also believed that a stain on her back patio door was the exact image of the king. Elvis has also been seen walking down several Memphis streets. One local resident even went so far as to say that Elvis's ghost, or one that looked very much like him, walked right through her. At least 3 of Elvis's homes in Memphis have held the reputation of being haunted by his ghost. Elvis once lived at the Lauderdale Courts, which were built in 1938 and never refurbished. So in 1994, the Memphis Housing Authority declared the complex unsalvageable and it was set for demolition. That day never came, and the entire complex was refurbished and reintroduced as Uptown Square. In 1995, Elvis's old apartment was the home to Miss Annette Neal. The National Enquirer once published a story about the apartment with Miss Neal's consent under the headline, Elvis's Ghost Haunts Boyhood Home. So there's really an unlimited number of ghost sightings of Elvis, but I just touched on the main ones that I found. And now I'm going to talk about something that a lot of you may not know about Elvis that is very interesting and may kind of explain a little bit psychologically why he was kind of an outsider and why he kind of looked at things the way he did. Elvis Presley had a twin. Let me repeat that. Elvis Presley had a twin, but that twin died at birth. The twin was stillborn, and so he was an only child all of his life. Now his twin's name was Jesse Garin Presley, and he was born 35 minutes before Elvis. Now his brother Jesse is buried at Priceville Cemetery nearby where they lived at the time, unfortunately in an unmarked grave. Though I will link a video down below. I did a little bit of research and someone had found the supposed place where his brother is buried, even though it's unmarked. Now Elvis did create kind of a memoriam for his brother at Graceland. Now allegedly, people that were close to Elvis said that the death of his twin affected him his entire life. They said that he would speak of his twin many, many times. Allegedly, he would visit the unmarked grave and talk to him. Part of the reason why I think it may have affected him so much in his life is he felt like because he lived and his brother died, people say that he felt like he needed to live even more than the average person as far as living and like pursuing his dreams. Like he needed to really make his life worth it because somehow he was chosen to live and his brother was chosen to die. Now, allegedly, his mother told him at one point that he was living for 2 people, so that may have added to it psychologically, the fact that he felt like he needed to push himself more and do more in his life. Now, his mother is also said to comment that Elvis had the energy of 2 people. And not only was Elvis possibly affected by his brother's death, but he also is said to have lived with the guilt and loneliness because he was an only child. So as you can imagine, just myself thinking about it, I would imagine that would be very lonely and that there would be some element of guilt there as to, you know, why did I survive and my brother didn't? And I did a little bit of research on what's called single twins. And this is a very, very common thought process for people in that situation to grow up like that, to grow up with a feeling of loneliness and guilt and just to have it affect your entire life. So I thought that was very interesting. It's something that I had no idea about until my mom told me, and then I kind of researched it a little bit more, and I thought I had to include it in this video. Now, I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories in this video, but I want to just mention really quick, there are several conspiracy theories regarding Elvis's death and even regarding his twin's death. If you guys want me to do a video like that, let me know and I might do it. But I didn't want to include that in this video because that would make it way too long. It's already going to be long. Other than that, that is the end of this video, and this is bittersweet. This is also the end of 31 Days of Halloween officially. I really appreciate all of you who have watched my videos this month. It has been great to be back. It's been great to have people find me this month that didn't know about my channel before and, you know, be watching my videos, and then people who've been watching for years now to watch my videos this month. It just means so much. I appreciate everyone who's come on board. I'm definitely going to keep at it, not every day. I'm not going to be uploading every day anymore, but I'm going to try to do once a week. Emphasis on try, but I am going to definitely keep working at this because I enjoy doing it. And just getting the comments from you guys that you enjoy it too and that it's made a difference in your life, that means the world to me. So that's going to fuel me to keep going. So anyway, you guys, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween. Stay safe, stay healthy and happy, and I will see you in the next video, probably next week. I'll try to have another upload. But anyway, have a great night. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for everything this month. Have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.